My name's Josh, and I served on active duty in the Air Force from July 2003 to July 2010, so for about 7 years. And I was a security forces member. A volunteer assignment came up through the Air Force to go deploy for a year in support with the Army. It was called an ILO, or in lieu of assignment. So I volunteered, and almost everybody saw direct combat at some point. The Humvee I was driving took an IED hit on my door. All I remember is it went off. It felt like I don't know, like my ears were ringing, and then there was like a big moment of silence, and then all of a sudden, like my truck commander's yelling at me, screaming at me to like just keep driving. But one of the guys that I was stationed with at Minot, he was riding in the turret, and he was giving his gunner a break because he was a truck commander, and an IED went off maybe 30 feet away, but somehow a piece of shrapnel just got between his goggles and his helmet perfectly, and like penetrated into his brain. It was just really, really like hard at the time because like personally, like I had known him because like we had been stationed together at the same base. So, and like we had known each other before the deployment. So, like knowing that, that was just a bomb away was like really tough. The normal things that people experience in post-deployment had been pointed out, and I think, although I was young, I think I was smart enough at the time to know that they're probably true, and instead of me trying to take, I think the biggest step was, instead of me having that hard-ass attitude about, you know what, it's true for everybody else, it's not true for me. Like the not ability to sleep, well for a long period of time, probably the drinking, and then like the attitude for survival in Iraq is different than when you come back home and you have to reintegrate with civilian life. And like that to me was like the hardest part. I had my dad drive with me the first few days I was back in the States here in Boston, but I would just blow through like red lights because I wasn't even looking for them and paying attention. Like, and my dad would be screaming like red light, red light, red light, and I'd be like, My mother's a nurse, and she knows a lot of people who do this kind of thing, so she also kind of like checked in on me like when I got back here to Boston, and she recommended, some of her friends to talk to. And then I had a couple other friends who had deployed, and they kind of like were probably like the best resource initially when I got on leave to like just sit down with. So after like talking and seeing people who specialize in that, so like the alcohol has definitely gone down, and I'm more of a social drinker now. So, but the hypervigilance, like that has stayed around for a little while because I find certain things I still pay attention to no matter what. So like I can be in crowds, but I know that when there's a lot of people around, I pay way more attention to who's there. I think that I sit here today in due part because it was offered to me, and even though I didn't take it at first, I definitely listened, and then the pieces that I needed I took later on. You actually have to actively go take what they're offering to you at the time that you come back, because when you're upset and you're mad from a deployment, or you're frustrated, then in a few months once you've internalized and thought about it, then if you need help, then at that point you take what you need, or you go get advice.